All righty. Chairman, as we have Chaplain Taylor via proxy through Carolyn Barger, so we'll let her do that. And he's on speaker.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being patient. We'll call this meeting to order. Today is August 3rd, 2020. And our first August meeting here at 3 p.m. Rowan County Commission. And we'll get started.
Chairman, I think you're muted, not on this side, but your input on your computer.
I'm not muted. No, I am not muted.
He's coming through on mine.
Yeah, I can hear him.
You ready?
No, sir, not quite.
Okay.
Randy, do you have me?
I sure do. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, that was all me. Sorry about that.
Again, welcome to August 3rd, 2020 meeting, Rowan County Commission, 3 o'clock meeting, and we'll get started as we typically do. We do a couple things. We're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance. We'll be led to begin with in our invocation by Chaplain Michael Taylor. And so, commissioners, if you'll join me, we will begin this meeting.
Lord, we thank for this day. We thank for county commissioners and the preparation they've made for this meeting. We pray you'll give them the wisdom they need. Thanks for the work they do. We place them in your hands now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Flag's coming. If not, I got one over my shoulder.
I got it.
All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. Boy, this meeting is still developing. We got a bunch of stuff to change on our agenda. So for additions to the agenda, we are going to add a closed session to discuss a real property purchase for an economic development matter, and also attorney-client privilege regarding litigation. And so we will add that as item 7A. We also have some items that came from the county manager that he wanted to attach to our consent agenda. One of them was a memo from HR from Kelly regarding temporary positions, COVID positions. I believe that was at DSS. And then, and you received in your inbox.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did you say that was going to consent? DSS?
It was requested for the consent agenda. This was sent by Carolyn this morning at 9:52. It says, Commissioner Ed has agreed to entertain a motion to add the attached items to the consent agenda during today's 3 p.m. meeting. I'm happy to put it on regular if you like.
No, that's fine on consent.
Okay. And then a second one, this was from Aaron Church, memorandum with 2 attachments to replace the attachments on the August 3rd agenda under item 4. Let me see if that was all that there was. So let me back up. So that consent agenda item that I just talked about from Kelly would be item Y as in yellow. Item Y is in yellow. All right, so that's that one. Then I think this other one is just that I received was just updated information that was to be attached to the CARES Act funding plan that we'll be discussing openly. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we've got that one consent agenda item. We've got update to item 4. We've got closed session items. Oh,
You also sent us a resolution for
Yeah,
the North Carolina Transportation Museum.
yes, sir. Then that resolution would come in as item, let's just make it 3A. Okay. All right, bunch of changes. Everyone
Mr.
follow
Chairman?
that? Yes, sir.
Were you going, was there an Exiom contracts from the sheriff that we're gonna look at, or is that a different? We're gonna look at that later.
I thought that was, I could be mistaken, and I thought that was under,
Is that on the agenda already?
well, I've got a Post-it note that said addition. I thought it was under item M, under consent, of purchase for the sheriff's office. And I got this from Carolyn. Carolyn, is this not part of that?
No, sir, that's a different edition. I
Okay,
think Aaron emailed that out last week.
all right, Aaron, which, is this going on active agenda or consent? Is Aaron there?
Yes, sir. It can go on consent.
Okay, but it's separate from item M?
Yes.
Okay, then this will go under consent, under item Z as in zebra. Okay,
And Chairman Eds, do you mind if our HR Director, Kelly Natoli, mentions one thing about health and DSS real quick, just for clarification?
yes.
Hi, Chairman Neds. This is just a quick correction to the item that you had mentioned. Item Y is for Health Department instead of DSS.
You're right. Yep. I knew that, but like a lot of times when I open my mouth, wrong stuff comes out. So I knew that was Health Department. I'm looking at it right now. So yeah, it is Health Department, and that's the item Y. So Health Department, I misspoke. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks for looking out for us. Appreciate it. All right, a lot of changes. Everyone got us on that? All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. All right, then do we have a motion to approve the minutes of July 13th, July 21st, and July 24th, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Craig, motion, and I don't know who seconded,
Jim.
Mike? All right, all in favor,
Jim.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, then the consent agenda has been amended and approved. That agenda approved. So do we have a motion to approve consent as amended?
So
So
moved.
All right,
Second.
Jim and Craig, motion and a second. All right, thank you. All right, April and Randy, do we have anyone on public comment?
No, sir, no one indicated when we made previous calls. If you want to make an additional call to action for public comment, anyone interested in participating should raise their hand if joining us through the Zoom application.
We'll give that a few seconds.
I do not see anyone raising their hand at this time, sir.
All right, if anyone pops in, let us know. Okay, we'll I'll certainly give them some time. All right, we'll move on then to item number 3. And this is an economic development item, and Scott Shelton is with us. Scott, welcome. I think I saw you on there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Again, thanks to the board for agreeing to hear this request today for Project Sun. I think that April may have the presentation for today.
Yes, sir. Bear with me for just one moment, please.
Okay.
So sorry about that. I was exporting as a PDF. It does not seem to want to cooperate with me for PowerPoint. Randy, did you want to load it as a PowerPoint, or if you can give me just another second, I'll have it open as a PDF.
You're good. Just let me know if you have problems. I do have it ready in PDF as well.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Trying to find where it's saving it.
I'll go ahead and share, April.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thanks, April.
All right. Again, thank you, Chairman and board members, for hearing this request today for Project Sun. Next slide, please. This is an existing company, an existing manufacturer in Rowan County. They have an international presence and are a very large employer in our community currently. Next slide, please. Their owners are considering an expansion of their existing facility, investment in new equipment, in order to allow them to increase their line speeds and also meet their current and future demands. If Rowan County were picked for this expansion, we would see 56 new jobs created over the next 3 years. And about 40 of those 56 new jobs would be production type positions. The remaining 16 would be in categories like maintenance technicians, supervisors, and other support staff. Next slide, please. They would also invest $45 million into the property through the expansion of the facility, upgrades to the facility, and also major equipment upgrades. And we anticipate the majority of these improvements being done by the end of 2021. Now, this is a competitive project, and our primary competition is other facilities owned by the company in Ohio and in Louisiana. Next slide, please. We don't anticipate any kind of regulatory issues with this project. I think it's zoned correctly as is, and I'm sure the company would work with the staff of the county for any other potential issues. Next slide, please. Now, under your current incentive program with their $45 million investment, they would be eligible for a level 1 investment grant through the county, and that is what they are requesting here today. Next slide, please. And you have some numbers in your packets, and those numbers were based on the following assumptions: that the current tax rate would stay the same, and that $6.5 million of equipment and construction would occur prior to the end of this year. And then the remaining $45 million in improvements would be done by the end of 2021. Next slide, please. And there you see the numbers in front of you. Next slide, please. And of course, this level 1 grant is for 5 years. So during the 5-year incentivized period, we anticipate about $1.2 million in revenue being collected by the county. We anticipate the total grant being just under $920,000. So that will leave a net to the county over 5 years of about $306,500. Over that 10-year lifespan, or 10-year projection rather, it'd be about $2.7 million collected. Of course, there's that $920,000 grant. So that would leave for the county a net of about $1.78 million in tax revenue over 10 years. Next slide, please. Now, there are state incentives in play for this project. We're currently working with the county and seeking a $460,000 building reuse grant through the state. A copy of the resolution for that is in your packet. The grant does require a 5% local match. That would be about $23,000. But of course, your level 1 grant would satisfy that requirement. Now, we do realize the county finance staff is very busy, so we would recommend that the county consider hiring a professional grant administrator to administer this grant. And we anticipate about $25,000 being the cost for that administrator. Next slide, please. In addition to the building reuse grant, we're also pursuing a $100,000 1NC cash grant from the state of North Carolina for job creation. This would be, again, a discretionary program through the state for the job creation. And we would need the county chairman and also county manager to execute some of those grant documents for this grant. Next slide, please. Now, this grant requires a 50% local match. That's $50,000. And again, that would be through the level 1 incentive grant through the county. Next slide, please. So I know I've thrown a lot at you, but EDC is asking the county to please consider the following. That level 1 tax incentive grant for Project Sun for 5 years, submitting the building reuse grant application to the state, consider hiring a grant administrator for the project, also authorize the county chairman and county manager to execute the building reuse grant documents. Next slide, please. And then for the 1NC grant, authorize the county to submit a $100,000 grant application to the state of North Carolina. And like the building reuse grant, authorize the chairman and manager to execute those grant documents. Next slide, please. In closing, we think this would create 56 well-paying jobs over the next 3 years if we're selected for this project. Over 5 years, the county would retain about $306,000 and retain about $1.78 million over 10 years. And of course, it's an opportunity to support a valued existing employer in Rowan County. Again, that's a lot of information, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have about the project.
Do you have any salary numbers for us?
Yes, sir. We just got this. The average salary for all these positions is $44,152 annually.
Okay.
And in regards to the timing of the project, we anticipate a decision around mid-October for this project.
All right, any other questions?
Those are just the new jobs. They're not the total that are existing there, but total of the new positions.
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's the average for the 56 new jobs.
Got the compensation package at 44,000 does that include benefits or is that 44,000 plus benefits?
44,000 plus benefits.
Okay.
That would be a requirement of the state grants to have benefits for the employees. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good. All right, if there's no other questions, then what we'll do is, I don't have a gavel here, but we will open the floor for a public hearing. So if anyone has called in and would like to speak in this public hearing, then we'd like to hear from you. And Jay, I'm sure we're still under the same regulations of we'll approve.
Yeah, just do it subject to the 24-hour public comment period. And I guess there are two actions, one to approve the grant agreement and one to approve the authorizing resolution.
Okay. All right, we've not heard anyone that's called in, so we'll close the public hearing for now. And again, we have 24 hours for folks to call in or contact our office or email. And so what we would need now is a motion to approve the incentive agreement. And what else did you say, Jay? How did you want us to do it?
Scott, there's an authorizing resolution as well, isn't there?
There's an authorizing resolution, yes, for the board to apply for the building reuse grant through the state of North Carolina, and also the incentive grant.
Okay. So we'll take those one at a time. Do we have a motion to approve the incentive grant as presented to us by EDC?
So moved.
All right, Craig, motion. Second, all right. Hey, Mike, you're, okay, there you go. So we have motion, a second. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then we need a motion to approve the authorizing resolution. We have a motion for that.
So moved.
Craig?
Second.
Mike, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Scott, you need anything else from us for now?
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much for considering this request.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4. Wait a minute. I said 3A, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Item 3A. This has come to our attention. We've gotten some calls from the North Carolina Transportation Museum, really just reaching out to the county commissioners out of desperation and asking for help. We have a resolution that's been provided, resolution supporting the North Carolina Transportation Museum request to reopen under limited guidelines. I'd like to call on Jay. Jay and I have talked about this and talked just before we began our meeting, and I asked Jay if he would just really kind of explain what's going on this. So Jay.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, Chairman Eds and I received an email from Roy Johnson, who's the president of the North Carolina Transportation Museum Foundation. There are two components to that. There's the museum, the state piece of it, and then the foundation, the private piece. And so this comes from the foundation, but they had sent out a package of information to the governor's office and to Dr. Mandy Cohen of the Department of Health and Human Services on July 1st, requesting permission to open up on a limited basis their buildings for the exhibits. And as of March 17th, the buildings have been closed. You can go on site, and they do pull a couple of items out for people to view. But the DHHS response to them the day they submitted it was that they were an amusement park and couldn't open. And as a matter of fact, they had been pulling a train out onto the turntable at the Roundhouse, and people could go on it, and they actually, DHHS shut that piece down. So the $3 tickets they were selling to come on site and do at least a couple of things that they couldn't do anymore. And so anyway, there are other places in North Carolina, Tweetsie, Great Smoky Mountain Train. There are other facilities that are open and operating under limited conditions with capacity. The proposal that the foundation submitted included restrictions to 50% capacity, social separation, appropriate PPE by staff. And as you know, they have two main buildings, the Roundhouse and the Back Shop, that are both, one's 90,000 square feet, the other one's 110,000 square feet, 60-foot ceilings, open air. And so they just are requesting the government to review that decision. And they want some help from us, and they want some help from the local delegation, State Representative Warren and State Senator Ford, to open up in a limited capacity. They have an estimated $22 million economic impact. As a matter of fact, I spoke to Mr. Johnson today, and they just sent their information into the state that this fiscal year, they've already lost Thomas the Tank in September. Now what's in question is the Christmas Polar Express. But they're estimating that they won't break $100,000 in net economic impact because nobody's coming. And so their revenue obviously is depleted. They're using capital reserves to maintain the buildings and the equipment. They have over $4 million of inventory out there, museum inventory. And so anyway, they're just reaching out for your help. They want the board to consider this resolution, and then whatever the board can do to help them with the state.
So let me read the resolution. I think once I learned that the Great Smoky Mountain Railroads in Tweetsie is open, that it seems a bit curious that we're not allowed to open here in Rowan County. Whereas the North Carolina Transportation Museum, again, it's a museum, is a 60-acre historic site located in the town of Spencer and Rowan County, and operates under the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Whereas the museum closed on March 17th and its buildings have remained closed pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order 117 and the state subsequent North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services determination, the museum is considered to be an amusement park. And whereas according to the Department of Cultural Resources website, since June 2nd, 2020, near all of the state's historic sites have reopened to the public under appropriate cleaning guidelines with limited access. Whereas the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad is fully operational with train rides of up to 5 hours long with food service, while the museum's Heritage Railroad, a 20-minute train ride, as well as its 2 open-air primary buildings of more than 200,000 square feet, with ceiling heights of up to 65 feet, remain closed to the public. Whereas the museum's foundation has invested more than $15 million in private investment since 1996 in the renovations of its roundhouse, back shop, and other buildings, and currently maintains over $4 million of historic trains, planes, and automobiles. Whereas the museum anticipates extending the closure period will impact its revenues by up to 90%, while the museum still spends existing capital improvement funds to maintain the grounds, valuable inventory and historic buildings without emergency state funds or patron revenue. Whereas Rowan County, the town of Spencer, and all local municipalities and business owners will lose an expected $22 million of economic impact that the museum creates from its more than 110,000 visitors annually. Now therefore be it resolved, the Rowan County Board of Commissioners hereby expresses its full support for reopening the North Carolina Transportation Museum according to the guidelines for cleaning, social distancing, and appropriate PPE use by its employees proposed by the museum in its letter request to the governor. And now be it further resolved that the Rowan County Board of Commissioners will submit this resolution to the state and work with local delegates in an effort to achieve the goals herein. I'll offer that up to us in a form of a motion. We'll send that to the governor and hope we get a response from this one. I don't believe we got one from one we sent earlier. But it'd be great to hear back from them. So I offer that in the form of a motion. Do we have a second?
Okay.
All right, Craig, second. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, yes, Mike. Jay, what was the reason again that they said this was an amusement park, and who made that determination?
I'm assuming it's because of the Thomas the Tank Engine event, the Polar Express event. Where there's a train ride component to it. What they've requested is that they open up the 20-minute Heritage Railroad that just sort of goes in that little crescent circuit out there on site. All state historic sites are sort of limited. The buildings are closed, and so the Great Smoky Mountain and Tweetsie, those are not state historic sites. but they're allowed to be open. So the question is, what standard are we using to keep the state component of the historic sites closed as amusement parks when you have amusement parks that are open? And so, but I think it's the train ride component, because as I understand it from Mr. Johnson, the reason they shut down the round table, which is just a train sitting on the round table and spinning around, was that DHHS considered that to be an amusement. And so they couldn't operate that anymore. So I think it's the fact of getting on a train and charging a ticket price.
Okay. Thank you.
This is where we are today. So we have a motion. I think we have a second. Is there any other discussion? All right. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jay, for your help on that. And hopefully we can help out our local museum. And we appreciate all that they do. All right. County Manager Church. Approval of revised CARES Act funding.
Randy, do you mind to display the most recent plan? Okay, so this the first page is just to kind of memorialize what the board approved insofar as how much each municipality will receive, and then it goes back and also adds under architect fees the amount of architect fees that will be allowed per municipality to receive. And the prior memo that was sent out kind of explains how we arrived at these numbers based on the initial proposal from Pete Bogle. And then the last column is the total dollars allocated to municipalities. So when we submit the revised plan, this will go in the plan. Randy, if you can go to the next. Okay. So the largest expense estimated in the plan as of August 3rd is 1.6 million. All of that goes towards construction with the exception of the grant administration position. And Pete Bogle is with us this afternoon. If the commissioners have any questions on what's in these fees and what type of renovations will be done. This is just a budget number, it's an estimate. And we may bring an additional revised plan back to the board. And as you all may know, that the United States Congress and Senate are currently working on a new legislation right now that could affect how this plan is currently presented. Human resources is approximately $550,000 in direct employee pay expenses. Then $150,000 is for FMLA and sick pay. Social services is about $13,600. Can you go to the next? Thank you. The health department, here is another, the COVID testing, which is $212,500. That remains the same. Additional staffing for nurses, interpreters, outreach coordinator, and support staff is $435,000. That's a rather large portion of the plan, and that was part of the consent agenda added a night for temporary employees. Information technology is 466,000. The telework expansion, paperwork reduction, public awareness, and the Zoom rooms probably will remain at that number. The broadband, this may need to be amended pending pending what we receive in response from the RFQ we sent out, whether or not broadband can be implemented within the time frame. With that said, when I said time frame, as you've all heard me say many times before, it's at the end of December. However, there's a lot of discussion at the federal level that one of the components of the new plan is there may be a time extension on how long to spend the money, which could have an effect on the broadband and could have an effect on some of the construction items, as well as the employee pay reimbursement. But we don't know what that legislation is. And the last one is emergency services. Something that is new that we've added in the plan. If the board approves the plan, then the next item on the agenda is to approve 4 new positions. Alan Kress is available to answer any questions about that. But I'll go ahead and give a brief summary of what that $112,500 is for. That is to create 4 new positions who are paramedics and will be called COVID community paramedics. And we have spoke with the VA and Novant about that. We've shared the plan with them, and this will be a paramedic. There'll be 4 new positions if approved by the board, and their job will be checking on and providing support to citizens who have tested positive for COVID-19 and who are either have not been in the hospital yet or have been discharged from the hospital but would like to participate in the program. This is completely a voluntary program that citizens can participate in. If you test positive for COVID-19, you will not automatically be enrolled in the program. But if you test positive for COVID-19 and you would like to be involved in the program, you will be assigned a paramedic and or paramedics, depending on the frequency of visits you would need, and they would come to your house and provide, basic services that we provide, blood pressure, oxygen levels, and just, general welfare checks for the citizen who has tested positive for COVID-19. Some of that may include if a COVID-19, someone that is tested positive in this quarantine, they can't leave their house, they don't have any family, they need someone to go purchase food for them. The community paramedic could do that. The community paramedic could also go to the pharmacy for them and pick up the medications they may need. It's a really small amount for all the stuff that I think they can do. Part of what's in this is, it's only, the pay is only through the end of December. We can revisit it at that point in time, and there'll be 2 new vehicles purchased, but the way we're going to ask for reimbursement, Leslie can explain that. We're not going to ask the federal government just to give us, clearly, they're not to pay for the whole vehicle, because 2 vehicles would be close to 100,000, but we're going to prorate those vehicles per month on how much they're used. we envision that the program may go past December, and there may be an extension past December. With that said, the total estimated grand total is $3,955,578. Randy, if you can go back up to the attachment 1. This is only a portion of the plan. We'll submit an additional $1,363,877 when we submit the plan. By the way, when we submit the plan, it's not in the way we're presenting it to you. It's a form they've got, and we present it. We'll present it in that fashion. The municipalities are currently getting their plans to the county. I've received a draft of one municipality, and we'll be submitting those also to the state. But they have asked for this plan as late as Saturday, a revised plan, but the municipality plans, I believe, are due mid-September. Again, to just summarize what I went over, I know it's a lot, and I know we continue to talk about it, and you know, Pete Bogle's on the call. He's done an extraordinary job identifying things that I would have never thought of, that I think are going to be very useful. And Alan Kress is also available for questions. And just to identify one thing that I was impressed with that Pete had discovered and came up with is at the West End Plaza, replacing all the doors with doors that automatically open and shut to reduce the amount of touching, high touch surfaces. So that's one thing. And that's just an example of one of many, many, many buildings, but they have really done an extraordinary job of coming up with the things that are directly and pretty much only related to COVID-19 that hopefully will reduce as much as possible or the transmission of COVID-19 in county facilities. And Don Bringle also has done an extraordinary job. He and Siobhan Allen and the Bogle firm have met with each department. They've been to the courthouse. Don has spent an extraordinary amount of time at the courthouse working on ways to help assist the courthouse. And also Leslie and all the staff and finance, they worked really hard too. It's kind of something that they weren't planning on working on, you know, immediately after the budget, but it's been a lot of hard work, and they've all done a great job, and don't really know how we would have done this without them. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Pete Bogle is available, and so is Alan Kress, the interim emergency services director.
Hey, Aaron, this is Mike. What, under the telework expansion, what's all in that? Is that buying laptops? Is that buying software?
Randy, can you help answer that question, please?
Yes, sir. Telework expansion is related to laptop purchases, and we're also doing phone replacements as well that allow staff that are doing telework to be able to answer calls in phone trees and auto attendants while they're working from home as well. That is mostly on the telework expansion side on the hardware portions, and the 200,000 really, we pretty much already got our plans for that ironed out, and we've already had some prior purchases that I think we'll work with finance on to put that into using the CRF funds for laptops that were purchased very, very early on that we've utilized a good portion, and we'll continue to utilize those and roll those out.
So are the employees, they're already using those laptops, they're already teleworking, or is this to expand the number of employees that can work from home?
Yes, there are employees that that were using desktops that have been taking advantage of the early purchase in March for the laptops, and we'll continue to have additional based on any of the individuals that have been teleworking and either borrowing those, will switch over to reduce cost overall. There'll also be any individuals that have been utilizing personal equipment will be looked at as well and determine if they can utilize this as they go forward.
And Commissioner Caskey, there will be probably an expansion to teleworking, especially as school starts back. We're currently working on creating work environments where employees can work from home, where their children are also going to school from home and do their job traditionally would have been very hard to do from home, but we're going to do all we can to facilitate a working environment to where it can be somewhat virtual for positions that have been really hard to work from home.
As of now, do we do any kind of, so I guess if people working from home, we're using their broadband and we're using their electricity, I guess. I mean, are we looking at any sort of reimbursement for any of that or help with that? Or what are most corporations or businesses or government doing with that?
We have not looked at that yet. Right now, the hardware piece is one of the predominant sides that we're seeing. So there's no use or no need for use of personal equipment. What we've encountered and we're working on with the phone side, and that is definitely a high expansion, is especially like in social services where you might be using a county cell phone, and we're trying to make sure that those same numbers that you have for your desk phone is utilized when you're making those call outs to individuals if you're working from home. So most of the effort is being put in that initial hardware side. That's really, the 200,000 only goes so far with that, and we'll, of course, we'll take it to whatever extent we can to expand and make sure that anybody that has been working from home, and we're also working with the departments if we find that there's individuals that aren't able to work easily from home, to make sure that they're addressed as well.
Thank you.
With what you said earlier, then you don't expect to have a problem with the $200,000 in the broadband section, do you? Certainly this buying equipment would support our using using the money for broadband expansion.
The Commissioner Green, the problem could be that if the broadband cannot be implemented by December 30th, then that would probably disqualify that as an expense, unless there's an extension on the time we have to spend the money, and that's something that was put in the RFQ.
Back to that telework. Where'd you go? Yeah. It's easy to give employees a laptop and send them home to work off of their router, but you don't necessarily want them calling out on their cell phone or their home phone. Isn't that right, Randy? Kind of what we're getting at?
Yeah, yes, sir. That is the other portion of this, is with the phone replacement. And we've already been doing that in departments, and we'll continue to go through that process. And we actually have the next order of phones lined up.
So what this allows you to do, this telework expansion, it allows folks to use their laptop as a phone. And so you're getting the county's phone numbers that are going out. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir. Actually, the IT department has been doing that. You can utilize your laptop, you can utilize your county-owned cell phone or personal phone, and it retains the same number. We've also done that with emergency services staff. And now if I call Alan, I don't know if he's in the office or if he's at home or if he's on the road. He's always answering. So yeah, there's a lot to that. And this also helps us with rerouting. We've utilized these phones for the expansion of the COVID-19 contact tracing and also the emergency operations for being able to call in as well. So it helps us kind of scale through different situations as well, including, should the hurricane come closer and we would have to activate EOC to be able to change the way we do the lines to do a virtual emergency operations center as well.
Gotcha. Seems like we've approved CARES Act several times now, so we're going to do it again. Yep.
And there'll be another report on the next agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
The August expenses.
All right. Are there any other questions about what he's presented to, what Aaron's presented, Aaron and Randy? All right. Well, then we need a motion to approve the revised CARES Act funding plan.
So moved.
Craig, motion. Jim or Mike second?
I did, I think.
All right, Jim second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Nope. All right, item number 5, are we going to go any further into that? Do we need to talk more about that, Aaron? And Alan?
I think I've pretty much covered it in the CRF plan, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about these positions.
I think this is something that other communities have created. It looked like it had some validity to it. I will say to the general public that Aaron and I spent some time with Novant. If we're going to use community paramedics, we wanted to know that it was something that the medical community found value in. So Aaron spent time with the VA leadership. We had a call with Novant leadership. And so this program that we'll be running through the end of December is something that has really been designed with Novant and the VA Medical Center's recommendations. So it's not just the county coming up with an idea. It's really these 3 organizations coming together and seeing how the county can support Novant and the VA and this COVID event that we have going on. So unless there's any other questions, I guess we could just move on. Item number 6 is budget amendments. Those were provided for. Do we have a motion to approve the budget amendments?
So moved.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the board would need to vote to create the 4 new positions.
thought we'd already done that. Okay. Let's finish up. We have a motion for budget amendments. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mike, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Moving back to the approval of 4 new positions for the COVID-19 community paramedic program. Do we have a motion to approve those 4 positions?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second. All right, Craig and Mike, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Move on to board appointments. And we only have 2. The Town of Faith zoning ETJ, Randy Riddle applied for a reappointment as an ETJ member for the Town of Faith Zoning Board, and the City of Kannapolis Planning ETJ. City of Kannapolis recommends a reappointment of Paula Sievert as an ETJ member of to the city's planning board. So we have 2 nominations. Do we have a motion to approve these 2?
So moved.
Motion, Jim second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, then we'll move now move that the board enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A4 to discuss real property purchase for an economic development matter, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 for attorney-client privilege, communication concerning pending or threatened litigation. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, Randy, did you send us,
Yes, sir, I did. It is in the invite.
need a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
All right, and a second? Someone, I'll second it. All right, there's nothing to come out of closed session, nothing to vote on, and I think we're done. So motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, and a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Y'all be safe.